Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be looking at Butchered at Birth, the second album by Cannibal Corpse. So this is the album where the band had finally figured out its sound and its formula, and even though it's a very important album in their discography, believe it or not, I find it to be a little bit overrated. I still think it's a great album, and it's considered a classic 90s death metal album. I have some issues with it, and I think they've done better than this. So, let's get into it. So firstly, we have another gory, gruesome, and over-the-top album cover. Just what we need. Aside from that, we have the same lineup on this album, and in my previous video I misspelled Bob Rousse's last name. It's spelled like this. My apologies to Bob. And on this album, Jack Owen and Bob Rousset actually share the roles of rhythm and lead guitar, so they're doing more than what they did on the first album, and as a result, there's some really catchy riffs on this album. And the guitar solos, while they're not the best Cannibal Corpse solos ever, they're still pretty enjoyable. Chris Barnes' vocals are now essentially low-pitched grunting, which is his more definitive vocal style in his time with Cannibal Corpse, and it pays off on every single track. The album is far less thrashy than the first album, and it has a little bit more variety to it. There's some cool tempo changes just like the first album, and for the most part they're utilized very well. There's also a guest appearance by Deicide's frontman Glenn Benton. He appears on Vomit the Soul. The drums have a little bit more of a crunch to them, and overall the album sounds a bit more muddy or murky than the first album, but it works. And just a quick fun fact, back when their music was banned in Australia long ago, an Australian comedy act known as The Chaser suggested on their TV show The Chaser's War on Everything, and I quote, "The lyrics aren't the problem, it's the music." And they proved this by performing a lounge music version of the song Rancid Amputation. If he could do that on live TV, surely they could come over and perform. And thankfully their music is good for distribution now, but only to people 18 and above. Now, I don't have a lot to complain about on this album, other than the fact that firstly, even though I do like the production on this album, for me it's just not as good as it was on Eaten Back to Life. You know, it's just not as memorable, and it's a little bit all over the place. I mean, you know, some songs do have an unnecessary amount of tempo changes, and, you know, I guess it's because Eaten Back to Life was my first death metal experience ever. The transition from that to Butchered at Birth may have been awkward for me, and there are other albums they've done which I think are a little bit better in terms of production. And there were one or two songs towards the end of the album that I'm not really a huge fan of, to be honest. They could have been tweaked a little bit, or they could have been replaced by entirely different songs altogether. If I had to pick my favorite track, it would probably be the first one, Me Took Sodomy. For me, that's where the album kind of peaks. And my least favorite is the last one, In Its Decay. So that was my review of Butchered at Birth by Cannibal Corpse. I do appreciate this album, but it's one of my least favorites, to be honest. This was a very short review because there isn't a whole lot to talk about, and I'm not very good at reviewing music albums, as I've said before. So next time we're gonna look at their third album, Tomb of the Mutilated, the one that has their most iconic song, Hammer Smashed Face, and it does have to do with Jim Carrey in some way. Yeah, the comedian Jim Carrey, so look forward to that. So thank you all for watching. Please be sure to like the video, share it and subscribe, and hit the notification icon. Be safe during this time, and I'll see you soon.